What is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? The NFL schedule has been released. The Chiefs are facing adversity and a really tough schedule in 2024, making their path to the three-peat a tough one. We will be breaking down the schedule, the first half starting today on the Chiefs Uncovered. I'm Grindberg, and this is the Chiefs Uncovered on the Undroppables Network. So our top story is the NFL schedule has been released, and the NFL on Monday morning released that the Kansas City Chiefs will open the season at Arrowhead Stadium against the Baltimore Ravens on Thursday, September 5th at 8:20 Eastern on the NBC network. The game is a rematch of the AFC Championship game that took place in January, which, of course, our Chiefs won 17-10 in Baltimore. This pits two AFC powerhouses against each other in the first game of the year. A lot has changed in this offseason. Lamar Jackson now has his bulldozer Derrick Henry as they square off against the tight-lipped Kansas City Chiefs defense and former MVP quarterback, our Patty Mahomes. This will be certainly must-see TV. Remember that these two teams have the best defenses in the league last year, so don't expect a shootout right out of the gate. So temper your expectations. I'm not saying it won't happen because, of course, it is the first game of the year and these teams might be shaking off some rust, looking a little sloppy early on. But these two teams have very good defenses, and they were on full display last year, and especially in that AFC Championship game that ended in 27 total points. So not a whole lot of points scored in that game. So couple big storylines, maybe none bigger than when Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes face off. The Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson and the Kansas City Chiefs with our Patrick Mahomes played each other in each of Jackson's first 4 seasons in the NFL, but their last encounter before the AFC Championship game was back in 2021. The Chiefs are 4-1 against the Ravens in those games, but the Chiefs were the recent winners in the last tilt. In the 5 games against the Ravens, Mahomes has racked up some impressive stats. 147 for 202 with a 73% completion percentage. He's thrown for 1,700 yards, and he's averaged 370 yards per game against the Ravens, scoring 13 touchdowns and only allowing 2 interceptions, and has been sacked 6 times. He's had another touchdown on the ground and has been fumbled twice. So decent stats for Patrick Mahomes. But when you look at the other side of the ball, Jackson's numbers don't look as great as Patty Mahomes. He is 88 for 158, only a 57% completion percentage for 1,000 yards, 187 yards per game. So quite a bit lower than that, or actually half as much as what Patrick Mahomes has thrown. Only 5 touchdowns and has thrown 3 interceptions. He's been sacked 14 times. Our Chiefs have gotten to Lamar Jackson's on numerous occasions. His 3 fumbles against the Chiefs is also not great. This is a good time to remind you, though, that these guys don't actually play on the field at the same time, other than when they see each other, perhaps in the coin toss and whatnot. So hopefully this is a great game. There are some other relevant pieces of storylines to this, and maybe another big one, Hollywood Brown's revenge game. Hollywood Brown signed a 1-year deal with us. It gave us a deep threat that can finally stretch the field. It gives us a much needed veteran presence and weapon outside of, Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice, who we don't even know what's going to happen with his situation. Mahomes and Andy Reid now have their weapon in their arsenal that can make their long field stretching game a possibility. Yes, they also brought in Xavier Worthy, who we'll talk about a little bit further on, but Marquise Brown comes in as, probably the number one wide receiver for our Chiefs headed into this year if Rashee Rice serves that suspension. Brown, if we recall, was selected number 25 overall in the 2019 draft by the Ravens. He was the first wide receiver selected that year. He went on to play 3 years with Baltimore. Every year he played with them, he had a better catch percentage and a better yardage per total, which each season he had a pretty decent rookie campaign, but they were just, segues to his breakout year in 2021, where he recorded 91 receptions and 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. If he can get anywhere near that production for the Chiefs, I think that's a big win situation for a guy we're getting off a 1-year deal. He looks like a guy that headed into 2021, like I mentioned, could probably be the Chiefs' number one wide receiver because of his veteran presence. He knows, the game pretty well. And as long as he can stay healthy, I'm thinking that this season could be a pretty good bounce back year for a guy like Marquise Brown. So, our first game against the Ravens, and there's more things happening here. Another scenario that, another player that didn't play in the AFC Championship game is none other than Derrick Henry. And, when he was signed by the Baltimore Ravens, he signed a 2-year deal worth up to, $20 million, including $9 million of fully guaranteed money in his first year. Like, that is a big deal. It shows that he still has some left in the tank, or at least Baltimore thinks he does. He remains one of those guys. Last year at age 21, he racked up first in rushing attempts and second in rushing yards, so showing a little bit of drop off. And we know that Tajay Spears came in and started stealing some work from him on third down work and becoming a complimentary role to him, which has never happened to Derrick Henry in the past. But I think, on a contract year, they just wanted to, Derrick Henry didn't want to get rushed as bad as he normally does. And now he's going to a team where ranks first, third, 7, and first in total rush attempts in the last 6 seasons. To add to this, the Ravens finished first, second, first, second, and first in rushing yards in the last 6 seasons. And the cherry on top of that is they've ranked second, third, 9th, 20th, and 4th in rushing touchdowns as well. The Ravens have a top 3 rushing yards in all 6 years. This is the perfect landing spot for a guy like Derrick Henry, and that could be a situation that they could definitely see as a vulnerability for the Chiefs. Is our linebacking core was last year, and we know that to find success against us, teams needed to run the ball, and Derrick Henry could be a solution here for the Ravens. I think they brought him in to compete with our Chiefs. They know they needed to beat us, and bringing Derrick Henry gives them a really big bad workhorse back that can really, really wear a team down. So perhaps that's what the Ravens are doing here, and another guy that is going to probably get a big workload in this game based off of our receiving situation and how new they are, and that's Isaiah Pacheco, who settled into a strong running back 2 season last year. He could even have more upside in 2024 with how green that offensive unit is, and they did not retain Jerick McKinnon in the 4 games he played with McKinnon active. Pacheco still averaged 20 touches per game for 100 yards. So he is Kansas City's workhorse. He played 70% of the snaps last year, and I think he's just going to continue with that momentum. He is a guy that they're going to use early, I think, in this game against the Ravens to try and manage the clock, get their defense settled in. Because remember here, folks, we don't have L'Jarius Sneed anymore, and I think our secondary is going to need some time to adapt and gel to the new unit. And I think they're going to really need to control the clock. I think both teams are going to really try and run the ball early and often in this game. So it's gonna make another matchup pretty interesting, because remember how Zay Flowers had a really good game against us in that AFC Championship game. It wasn't until L'Jarius Sneed knocked that fumble out of his hands on the 1-yard line. Flowers has established himself as Lamar Jackson's go-to receiver in Baltimore. He secured a 24% target share last year and led the Ravens in air yards and target share, accumulating over 1,000 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns in 18 games. And I think he's just going to continue to go on the upswing. Mark Andrews will be back in the lineup, more healthier than he was in the AFC Championship game. Another guy that we're going to have to really target and hone in on. So these Baltimore Ravens, I know, are coming off of the offseason. They're going to have some revenge on their minds. They're going to want to get into our heads early. They're bringing in a guy like Derrick Henry to intimidate. And this is going to be a huge, huge matchup. And it's going to be one that could potentially be without one of our rising stars, a guy that, led the Chiefs in receiving yards in the wide receiver position last year, tallying 105 receptions for 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns in 20 games last year. That's including the playoffs. And I'm talking about a guy who earned himself a 19% target share, only playing 60% of the snaps, and that is Rashee Rice, whose availability was already in question after Roger Goodell went on record stating that Rice could be facing punishment under the league's personal conduct policy. The Chiefs covered their bases by trading up to get Xavier Worthy, and we don't know what is going to happen with Rashee Rice. There's more incidents popping up. He's being investigated about being involved in that nightclub incident. So a lot more situations happening. I'm hearing word that now it could be a 6 to 8 game suspension. Who knows at this point? We've heard everything around the clock, but it's looking more and more possible that Rashee Rice will be missing a good chunk of the 2024 season. Now, the Ravens, the Chiefs, head to head. What else could we talk about in this one? Well, Xavier Worthy, he brings a speed asset that Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey have not seen in the lineup since the departure of Tyreek Hill. I try not to compare the two, but it's hard not to see a lot of similarities with the way they speed and track the ball. Worthy crushed the 40-yard dash running a 4.21 at the combine. And we also know the Chiefs were supposed to pick last in the first round, and now they moved up and they got him with that trade against the Bills. So I just think that they're going to find ways to get Xavier Worthy the ball, especially early, especially if Rashee Rice is not going to be a guy in the lineup in the earlier part of the year. And that is some really, really exciting news for our Chiefs that can open up the playbook now a little bit here. The Chiefs have not been successful throwing the ball downfield since Tyreek Hill's departure. They've won a pair of Super Bowls, mind you, without him. But last year, 23 quarterbacks fired the ball 47 times, 20 yards plus downfield, and Mahomes ranked 23rd, dead last in passer rating in that category. Not great situation. Yes, the Chiefs did drop a lot of passes downfield, and that has got to clean up this year. And I think bringing these two guys in is going to be better for them. The Chiefs' drop percentage was 20% on catchable deep passes, by far the highest number in the league, and they only had 2 touchdowns downfield throws. Worthy and Brown are more sure-handed receivers and bring that speed factor to the Chiefs that can stretch the shit out of the field. Worthy is an underrated route runner on top of that. One of the most impressive aspects about his skill set is his technical route running ability. Worthy also topped the charts among Big 12 wideouts in points earned per route run, and I am sure Matt Nagy and Andy Reid are licking their chops at getting him the ball, and I think they're going to start earlier in the season because they're going to be forced to do so. Mahomes had the lowest average depth of target last year, and I think having Worthy and Hollywood Brown will really going to improve Mahomes' numbers going forward. And I think he's going to start the year, getting his groove again. But by mid-season, I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be an MVP for him, and his name is going to be in the hat quite a bit throughout the 2024 season in the MVP conversation, just based off of where I see the team headed and where they've been. So they're going to have a really hard matchup in the first week of the season. And we know it, but our Chiefs are ready for it. They're going to get a healthy dose of a healthy Travis Kelce, Underline that, folks. They're going to be able to use Travis Kelce earlier in the season, which I think is going to alleviate some of that pressure from these young wide receivers and these new wide receivers until they can find their groove in the middle of the season, when I think their schedule does ease up in some situations here. And we're going to deep dive a little bit further into that schedule because there's a lot going on with that NFL schedule with our Chiefs. Okay, so we're going to break down the first half, the rest of those 8 games as we get further into this show. Now, fantasy football season never stops. Did you know you can already draft for the 2024 season on Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play fantasy football? The big board is a pre-draft NFL fantasy football content with all the rookies in the player pool in their new landing spots. Draft your team in 20 rounds. That's it. Best ball format. You get the optimal score to fill your starting lineup. A great way to get your dynasty startup fix without any league management. Only $10 to enter and over $2 million in prizes up for grabs. Be sure to sign up for Underdog with promo code UNDROPPABLE. You'll get your first deposit match up to $100. And now back to the show. Now I'm going to share our screen here, and we're going to go over a couple of dandies here, and that is our second game of the year. The Chiefs are in tough again. Now the league has said, okay, we give you the Ravens. Okay, we'll give you at least them at home, and we'll also then throw in the Bengals with your second game of the year, and this will be the 6th time these two rivals will face off in 3 seasons. It's the first time they will meet before December. Joe Burrow missed the last matchup against Patrick Mahomes in 2023 after suffering that season-ending wrist injury in Week 11. All signs point to the quarterback being ready for training camp in July, and I think the league really set this up in a good way because they want to make sure they get some of these premier matchups out of the way early because you never know when this injury bug's going to fall down again on that quarterback position like it did last year. The Bengals won the first 3 matchups against the Chiefs in Burrow-Mahomes era, leading the infamous Burrow head chatter, and now placing this game early gives the best chance at both healthy quarterbacks in a showdown. The signal callers are the headliners, but the matchup is also intriguing. We've got some new situations in for the Bengals. You know, we're not sure what's going to happen by that point with T. Higgins. He may be on the move already. You know, they don't have Joe Mixon in their backfield anymore. They're going to be relying on newly acquired Zach Moss and also potentially Chase Brown. So Bengals getting their Joe Burrow back, and I'm looking for a huge season coming from Jamar Chase, and I think these two teams are gonna come in and they're gonna have a huge first tilt, and I think it's just gonna be a tough start for our Kansas City Chiefs, starting Ravens and then the Bengals. They're just going to be matched up really tight, and it's going to be a tough one. I predict probably a 1-1 record out of the gate here, and then we get into some lighter competition, if you will, and that is our third game of the year, and that's hitting up the Atlanta Falcons on primetime Sunday night football on September 22nd at 7:20 p.m. When the Atlanta Falcons signed Kirk Cousins, it was like a pressure release valve went off for guys like Drake London and Kyle Pitts. Do they rely on these two guys moving forward? Are you scared from their past? Well, I actually think this team is going to be pretty darn good this year, and they're going to make a strong push at their division. That means good things for guys like Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan Robinson, and it doesn't really move the needle much for me for Kirk Cousins, but I do think he makes everybody around him better. This Falcons offense is going to be a little bit more prolific than it has been under a Arthur Smith tutelage. Kirk Cousins probably good for a top 12 quarterback finish, which means 4,500 passing yards, around 30 touchdowns. And that is an increase of over 700 passing yards and over 14 touchdowns added to their offense. This will make a huge impact on the playmakers like Drake London to the moon. This new head coach, Raheem Morris, and new offensive coordinator, Zach Robinson, these guys will be looking for ways to get the ball to their supreme playmakers like Drake London, like Bijan Robinson, and like Kyle Pitts, who was regarded as one of the best tight end prospects to enter the league in years with the Falcons when they drafted him at the number 4 pick in 2021. He had a pretty good rookie season, catching 68 passes for 1,000 yards, but only had 1 touchdown that year. I think that regression is going to come back, and I think that the Falcons are going to surprise. Although it's going to be tough. I think this is going to be a good measuring stick game for the Falcons against our Chiefs after their first 2 games. They're going to see a little bit more of a stiff competition, seeing where they measure up against our Chiefs. I just don't think they're going to be in a position yet to succeed with the way our Chiefs do play, and they're going to be hungry, probably a little battle tested after their first 2 games. Now, game 4 is an interesting one. It's our first divisional matchup. And after 3 straight years of having the Chiefs play at home in either the middle or the end of the season, the Chargers welcome their biggest rival to SoFi Stadium in week 4. Let's be clear, the Chiefs are the team to beat in the AFC West, and now the Chiefs have won back-to-back Super Bowls and claimed 3 championships in 5 years. The Chargers surely want to put an end to the Chiefs' run of 8 straight AFC West titles too, and a lengthy snap a skid against our Chiefs. The best way to do that is to find a way in the early season against our Chiefs. Usually teams spend the first month of the year, trying to find their identity. And I think the Chargers are going to have a long way to go. They got a brand new head coach, essentially a brand new offense, completely other than their quarterback. We got a brand new running game. Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins might be in the mix, and, rookie sensation potential here in Kamani Vidal. Mike Williams on the way out, Keenan Allen gone, and now you got a rookie, Ladd McConkey, coming in potentially as their number 1 wide receiver. Josh Palmer's in the mix, and Quentin Johnson, former first-round pick of last year, is in the mix as well, and they just signed DJ Chark. So they're trying to put weapons around Justin Herbert, but I think they're going to be changing their offensive scheme. They're going to be a more run-heavy, defensive-minded team under Harbaugh, and I think that it's going to be some growing pains early and often for these Chargers, and getting the Chiefs in week 4, other than going in the end of the season, is going to be a tough go for the Chargers. And I think the Chiefs are going to handle this game. They're going to be 3-1 out of the gate, and then they get the New Orleans Saints. Okay, on Monday Night Football, another primetime game against an NFC division there, and the Saints are served up to the Chiefs on a silver platter with a Monday Night Football feature and everything the New Orleans can fight of it, but we shouldn't have any doubts of this outcome. Hopefully Allen can surpass us. It's worth remembering Derek Carr went 3-14 against the Chiefs in his career with the Raiders, and he only beat them once after Mahomes became the starter. Not much here. I don't think the Saints have a big challenge for our Chiefs. Derek Carr, Chris Olave, those are the mainstays, and probably a bounce back season here for Alvin Kamara. But, not much outside of that. A.T. Perry, Rashid Shaheed, and Kendre Miller are guys that are going to try and get into that rotation. But I see this one being an important game, a restful game before an untimely bye. Now, the Chiefs get their bye after a couple deep runs in the playoffs in the early part of the season, which is just not great. The only silver lining here is it's going up against, right before they face off in the Super Bowl rematch against the San Francisco 49ers. Still kind of like a meaningless game because it's not an AFC game. They're getting their bye before going on the road, and they're going on the road. They might have to stick around there in that area, in the Bay Area, because they got the 49ers, and then they got to travel to Vegas. So they're kind of in that area. So they might stick around after their bye week. It's a tough situation. I really don't like where that bye is. The toughest part of the schedule, back-to-back road games, teams that are playing us really hard, a Super Bowl rematch on the road, and then another game on the road against our hated division rivals. the game against the 49ers should have been the regular season opener. Fans across the world would have loved that rematch. It didn't happen. The Chiefs have been the thorn in the side of Shanahan over the years since at least 2018, and there's little reason to suspect that I think Patrick Mahomes is going to come in here and do some damage again against a 49ers team that has some question marks with them. Are they going to have a guy like Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk? That by that point, one of them can be gone and shipped out. And I think that makes a huge factor in this game if one of those guys is around. And if they have their same team that they were in their Super Bowl, I think they have a good shot at winning. I'm going to take the Chiefs here. They're going to come out of the gate 5-1 and then hit against the road against their hated rivals in a game that is kind of like a trick game. Taking down the defending back-to-back champions will obviously be one of the most important things the Silver and Black do this year, and it's probably one of their biggest goals, especially since the Chiefs are their hated rivals. However, it'd be foolish to bet against our Chiefs, but what happened last year on Christmas Day, that was a huge loss for the Chiefs. It was an eye-opening loss. It was actually a thankful loss that they took because it got us repositioned. It got us right back into the situation where they needed to really refocus. And I thank the Raiders faithful for putting a slapping to us on Christmas Day last year, and hopefully it doesn't happen again this year. Hopefully we're in a good position to do well against, the guys like Max Crosby. Who knows who the Raiders' starting quarterback will be by that point? Will it be Gardner Minshew? Will it be Aiden O'Connell? Will they, make a trade and get a veteran in? They got a new backfield there with Zamir White and Alexander Madison and rookie Dylan Lobb. They have a veteran wide receiving core led by, Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers. They added a top tier tight end and Brock Bowers in the draft to add another complement to, Michael Mayer last year. So tight end room really solid for the Raiders, and they're known to be upset players here. So I can see them coming in and being a tough matchup and, taking us down again. So after 7 games, we're 6-2, or sorry, after 7 games, we're 5-2, and we're headed against a home game on Monday night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And to the best, you got to beat the best. And the Chiefs are definitely the best team in the NFL. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 2 Monday night games in a row it'll be for them. And the first one will be against the Ravens, and then they'll have to do it again against the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead. Tampa hasn't beaten the Chiefs in the regular season since 2016, though the fans will remember when Tom Brady and the Bucs led them to Super Bowl 2021 over our Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. Things have changed quite a bit for the Buccaneers since that Super Bowl victory. Baker Mayfield's got a long-term deal. Mike Evans is back. Chris Godwin is now moving to the slot, and they brought in a guy like Jalen McMillan, adding a depth piece. They got their solidified running back one in Rachaad White, and then they brought in a complimentary pass-catching guy, potentially in Bucky Irving. So, I'm not saying that the Chiefs are going to steamroll this game because the Bucs are a good team, but I think in Arrowhead, I think this game is one that the Chiefs are going to bounce back from a loss from the Raiders and go 6-2 after 8, and then headed into their 9th game of the year. They're going up against the Denver Broncos, coming off a tough road game against the Ravens the week before. The Broncos will probably have lost that one. Now they hit the road against the Arrowhead, and they'll probably take an L against our Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. They haven't won in a long time, and I think they're going to have a tough one with their naive young squad. Bo Nix, leading the way. He's going to have his Troy Franklin from Oregon there around him. Javonte Williams coming off that injury last year, and they've added a guy like Audric Estime to power run, but they don't have a whole lot in the wide receiver room. Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, and Troy Franklin, I think, round out one of the weakest wide receiving rooms in the league, and I think they're going to have to do a lot more to protect Bo Nix here. So the Chiefs are in a really good position here to to head into the halfway point of the season, 7-2, if not 8-1. I think really that could be something that happens for us, and we're gonna kind of go over the second half of this season where there's some situations here where we're gonna have to talk about, and that's back-to-back road games against the Bills and Panthers, and then a Christmas Day tough one against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we have another really tough game against Cleveland Browns in Cleveland as well. So we're going to deep dive into those games on our next episode. So half an hour in, and we covered the first half of the schedule, and it's a very, very interesting schedule for our Chiefs, and it's going to be a tough one, to be honest. And it's a tough path for the three-peat, but the Chiefs are in good position. The media is following them wherever we go. We just seem to keep popping up there. So I'll be back next week with the fallout from the second half of the schedule here. And that's it for episode 12 of the Chiefs Uncovered. I appreciate you for tuning in. You'll be able to find this show and all the other Uncovered series on the Undroppables Network. We have a bunch of teams going right now, and we are bringing great team-specific content. So thanks, everybody, for following all those team-specific shows. We are popping off the handles, guys. So appreciate all the support. This has been really, really incredible. The influx of new viewership and the new subscribers. We just want to thank everybody from tuning in, from all of us on the Undroppables. It's been really, really incredible. The UN score has been very successful. The Unraveled show has been awesome. And then, Biggs and I are hitting up the pulse now, representing us through Undroppables as well. So, big things happening and huge uncovered news coming your way. We got a Jags creator just starting up. The Broncos show just hit monstrous reviews, and now we're gonna roll out another Commander show coming up. So Chiefs Kingdom, continue to subscribe. The Undroppables are also looking for anchors to fill these team specific content shows. So if you want to be part of this elite team, send us a message on Twitter. Our turf, your content, their game. Let's go. Remember to like and subscribe to this channel, and also follow me at FF Canuck on X. That's it for today. I'll be back next time with the breakdown of the Chiefs' second half schedule from everyone on the Undroppables Network. I'm Grindberg. Thanks for tuning in.